Hey everybody, I'm Tim, and welcome to Tim's Woodworking Tips and Tricks. First video I've ever made. I'm going to put a channel together. I hope you guys subscribe, and I'm going to try to go over a lot of woodworking stuff, a lot of tool reviews, just little tips and tricks I've picked up. I'm a cabinet maker by trade. I've been doing it a while now, and when I first started, it was hard to find videos that I guess really touched base on what I was trying to find. I'm not trying to say that my videos are going to touch on every topic you want to know about, but this is just basic stuff that sometimes I feel other videos just jump over. So I'm going to go over it step by step. Today I'm really going to focus on the biscuit joiner. Okay, I used a DeWalt. No preference. I've used other machines. They're all great. It's all about setup, and that goes for any tool you do with woodworking. It's all about setting it up. My buddy owns a $100 table saw, and I've made beautiful pieces on his table saw. It's just a matter of setup. Might take a little bit of time, but the end results, you can't touch it. So we're going to touch about the biscuit joiner, and we're also going to go over a little bit about pocket holes, and I'm going to tell you some of the differences, the pros and cons to using both of them. Okay, so let's start with the biscuit joiner. All right, like I said, I used a DeWalt. The first thing you're going to do when you take it out of the box is, all right, on the side here, and every tool is pretty much set up the same way, you're going to see a little knob, all right? When you loosen that knob up, it's going to allow the fence to fold down 90 degrees, okay? It's a predetermined stop, stops at 90. Make sure you tighten that back up, all right? Now this thing can be set at all different angles. I've been doing this for a while now, and I'll tell you that I have never had this thing set at anything other than 90. I'm sure there are applications that you could do that for. If you're cutting a 45-degree miter or a 30-degree miter, I'm sure you could set this up. I'm a cabinet maker. I've never had to do that. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. The second thing I want to talk about is you have to adjust the height of this fence. Okay, and that's all determined by the piece of stock you're using. Now I bought the pocket joiner out because I want to show you the difference when it comes to setup. Okay. On the pocket holes, all right, this is the Craig jig. All right, on the pocket holes, I'm not sure if you guys could see this or not, but on the side here is all markings, all different measurements, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch, all right? So you loosen this screw up, and you have to adjust this piece, determined on the size of the stock that you're using. Now the difference between the pocket hole and the biscuits, okay? On the pocket hole jig, if you were doing a 1/2 inch piece of stock or a 3/4 inch piece of stock, you are setting this to a 1/2 inch or a 3/4, depending on the type of stock you're using, okay? Now here's the difference. On a biscuit joiner on the other side, right here is a scale, okay? Now, when I loosen this up, I could move, as you can see, look, you can see the fence is coming up and down. Okay, now on the scale, the difference between the pocket holes and the biscuit. On here, if I am using a 1/2 inch stock, this is set to a 1/4 inch. Where on the pocket hole, if you're using a 1/2 inch, you're setting it to a 1/2 inch. The biscuit joiner does not automatically find the center for you. Okay, so if you're doing a 1/2 inch stock, you want it at a 1/4. If you're using a 3/4 inch piece of stock, then you want it set at 3/8. Okay, the demonstration I set up today is going to be with a 1/2 inch piece of stock. All right, so I'm going to look at my scale right now, and coming right out of the box, I'm going to be honest, the DeWalt has it set up pretty well. I'm going to find a 1/4 inch because I'm using that 1/2 inch, and I'm going to lock it back down. All right, so give it a little test run, and we're ready to go. All right, now the other thing I want to talk about is the depth of the plunge. All right, they have different sized biscuits. They come in 20s, 10s, 0s. I think FF is probably the smallest biscuit I ever saw. I've never had to use that. I use 10s on 1/2 inch stock, and I've never had a problem, so I don't know why I'd want to go any smaller than that. I'm sure there are people that do, once again, but I've never had to do that, okay? So here's the adjustment right on the side here, this little knob. It has the 10, the 20, the 0. That is the size of the biscuit you are using, okay? If you're not familiar with it, I'm going to show you. I have one of each here. All right, this is the number 20 right out of the box. All right. And right here I have the number 10. All right. If you can see the difference in size, it's really not much. But obviously the number 20 is the bigger one, the number 10 is the smaller, all right? Like I said, I am using a 1/2 inch piece of stock, so today I'm actually going to use the number 10s. 3/4, I go with the 20, but the number 10s are the way I'm going to go today. Okay? Now the one thing you absolutely want to do when you're using the biscuit joiner is you want to find dead center in the middle of the piece. Alright, so when you have your stock, I'm going to run my biscuit in here on this piece of plywood right here. I want my slot to be dead center in the middle. So how do you find that slot? Well, I have this set to 1/4 inch, okay? I'm going to take 2 1/2 inch pieces. So what I'm going to do is I am going to plunge a number 10 biscuit on the one piece, and I'm going to plunge a number 10 on the other piece. And then I will throw a biscuit in between them and bring the two together, okay? The end result, you are going to get a perfectly flush surface on the one side of it, no matter what you do. What you are looking for is when you take the one piece off, flip it over and put it back together, it should still be flush. If it's still flush, you found dead center in the middle of the biscuit hole. Alright, so I'm going to do that right now. Alright, the fence is set to 90 degrees like I said. Alright, I got my plunge setting set to number 10. So I'm just going to plunge to one side of the 1/2 inch. Like I said, also the fence is set to 1/4 inch on the biscuit joiner, not the stock. 1/2 inch stock, 1/4 inch on the biscuit joiner. Alright. I'm going to lay it down. You just want to get a nice firm grip. Alright, let it center itself. After a while, you'll actually get the feel for the biscuit joiner. Some of them are a little top heavy. You just got to kind of get the feel. Even when I use it, I'm a little slow on the first 1 or 2. All of a sudden you start doing 10 or 20 of them and you're flying through that board like it's nothing. You just get a feel for it. So take your time if you're not familiar with it. You don't want to get hurt, and you will get the hang of it 100%. Alright? So I'm going to plunge this cut in this 1/2 inch right now. Alright. So I got my one cut. I don't know if it's centered yet, but it's pretty close. It looks that way. Alright, I'm going to put that down. I'm going to grab my other 1/2 inch piece of stock. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Alright, so I plunged the same hole in both these 1/2 inch pieces. So like I said, I use the number 10 biscuits. Alright, I'm going to put a number 10 in there. And I'm going to put it, see number 10, and I'm going to put it flush with the other one. Alright, I have a nice flush piece here. Alright. That doesn't matter because I plunged them both from the same side of the stock. What I'm looking for is when I take the one piece off, I want to flip it over, bring them both together, alright? And you want this piece to be flush as well. I'm actually a little off. I don't know if you guys can see that at home, but you can see the gap in there. That's actually the one piece of stock sticking up higher than the other. I'd say I'm about a 1/16 off. I could fix it, but that's what you're looking for as far as centering the piece, okay? So, whoop, whoop. Almost, guys. You watched me destroy a $200 tool on my first video here. Not good. So, anyways, so here's some of the pros and cons I want to talk to you about biscuits as opposed to using the pocket hole jig. Both of them are great methods of joinery. Here's the difference. Okay, as a cabinet maker, I use a lot of pre-finished material. I don't know if you could tell, but this is actually pre-finished maple or ash. All right, it comes from the lumberyard like this. It's got the sheen on it. This is pretty much the industrial standard when it comes to interiors of cabinets. You know, we touch on the oak and the walnut when we're doing face frames and doors and exotic woods like that. But most base cabinets, it's pretty much a standard that we're using this pre-finished material. The problem with using this material when you're using this machine is glue does not stick to lacquer. Alright? So typically, you'd be putting another slot in here with your biscuit joiner, and you'd also be putting a slot on the edge like we did here, and you would be bringing the two pieces together. Alright, with biscuits, when you glue it, because the glue does not stick to lacquer, the only thing that is holding is the biscuit. So no matter how much glue you put on the outer edges, when you bring these two pieces together, it does not stick. The only thing that holds it would be the biscuit joint. Is it a problem? I don't know. I don't do it like this. I've never heard of a drawer failing because of that. But you could actually hear it after you let one of these dry on a pre-finished material. I don't think it'll break apart, but you could actually feel and you could hear the joint because it's loose in every other area except for that biscuit. Now, if you were using a hardboard or you were using a plywood that didn't have the lacquer finish on it, biscuits are great. it'll automatically give you a nice flush edge, and the glue will stick all the way down the joint. All right, so like I said, if you're not using a pre-finished, then the biscuit is actually great. I use a lot of pocket holes when I build drawers. Reason being, not that it's a better joint or anything like that, but the pocket holes, I could put 3 or 4 of them in one side, and the screws are holding it all the way down the joint. And I don't really care if the glue sticks to the finish or not. It's nice and snug. All right, another trick I've seen people do in another cabinet shop I work for, if you're taking your drawer side and you're putting it on the front, it overlaps by about a ½ inch, right? So you see that the one piece would be overlapping by a ½ inch. You could take your time and you could sand a ½ inch off of the sheen on this side, and this way when you glue it, it actually sticks together. But I don't do it like that too often. Like I said, I actually use the pocket holes. Most of the times when you're building a drawer with pocket holes too, you're running the pocket holes through the front of the drawer, because when you're building the base of the drawer, eventually it's going to get a face frame as well, so you're not even going to see those screws, and nobody cares what the back of the drawer looks like. Okay, so 2 different options you got. The choice is really up to you. I'd love to hear back from you guys. Hopefully I helped you out a little bit. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free, and be a little gentle. It's my first video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Take care.